Hey guys, this is Myleik and this is the podcast. Today we are switching things up just a bit with a special Ask Me Anything episode featuring one of the incredible listeners, Ashley Cole. Ashley is a dynamic educator and writer who uses her work to empower and inspire others to reach their fullest potential. She's written extensively on mental health, finance, and employee development. And when she's not dropping gems in her field, she's out exploring Atlanta, checking out new restaurants, parks, and museums. In this episode, Ashley came prepared with 8 thought-provoking questions. We covered everything from self-accountability and forgiveness to personal style, wine recommendations, and staying committed to personal growth when the world feels like it is on fire. This is a rich, honest, and fun conversation that I just know you'll love. So grab a cup of something good, settle in, and let's dive in. Okay, I am here with fabulous listener, Ashley. I wish you all could see her because she is just look at you. You look amazing. So Ashley's here. She has about 8 questions. This is a Ask Me Anything episode. So Ashley, take it away.
Thank you so much. You are so kind. I said, you know what? I have to.
This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
Do myself up.
Oh.
To talk to Myleik. So,
please.
Thank you. I put on a little something.
Okay. Well, you did it. You look great. Thank you, Ashley. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to put her Instagram and everything, you guys, in the notes so that you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, so the first question I have for you is around self-accountability, forgiveness, and just responsibility. So I think sometimes, or at least for me, when I make a mistake, it can be hard to forgive myself. It can be hard to accept that I made the mistake because I don't want to be blamed for everything outside of the mistake, right? I want people to know and see that I'm doing my best. I'm doing good enough. Please don't blame me for this and everything. So my question for you is, how can I move beyond the embarrassment, the shame, the guilt that sometimes comes with making mistakes, so that I can be accountable?
Wow. Such a good question. You know, I feel, here's the deal. I think if you've listened to this podcast, you know that I feel like I have answers, if you will, but I feel like it's not the answer per se. It's maybe an answer or maybe some questions. And I think something that I have leaned on, because we are human beings, right? And we are going to make mistakes. I think I've tried really hard to normalize or to remind myself that I'm human, you know? And so sometimes if I make a mistake, I'm just like, you're human. First of all, you're human. And so that is a part of living. The second thing I might try to do is just say, and I've said this multiple times, is mistakes are proof that you're trying. So if you make a mistake, you know, the best way to make no mistakes is to do nothing. Right? If you don't want to get anything done or be anywhere, then do nothing. So it's just this idea is if you go to hit the same thing 100 times, you're not going to hit it. You know, if I just take my hand and I just try to hit the top of my laptop 100 times, I'm not going to hit it in the same position. And I might even miss it one time. And it's like, did I do that on purpose? You know, am I a bad person because out of 100 times I missed it 5 or even 50, you know? And then I think the third thing that sometimes that might get me through is, what is that voice that I hear when I make mistakes? So that's what I'll ask you. What do you hear when you make a mistake? Ashley, what's something you hear? Tell me.
Yeah, I think I hear some of the more harsh voices from the past,
Yeah.
right? And so sometimes it's hard to settle into the safety of the present. Like, it's okay, like you just said, but every now and again, those voices, those teachers, those instructors, those previous bosses, even past versions of myself will
For
say,
sure.
look at what you're doing. That's not right, you know?
Yeah. Something I've talked about, and I've gotten, you know, I've been able to go deeper on this, but I used to put everything through the is it true challenge, you know? So if I heard something that's like, you know, that's not right, and it's like, okay, maybe it wasn't right, you know? Or if you hear something harsher of, you know, you're not good enough or something like that, I might say, is that true? You know, can you absolutely know that that's true? And it's like, I can't, you know, and that really that's kind of the deal. And the older I get, the easier it has gotten to move past some things. There's a time that I remember when I used to be really hard on myself. Like, I can think specifically about a time when I was like at a party and I felt like I just like talked too much. Like I took over something, you know? And I was just like, I remember getting home and beating myself up about it. And it's just like, okay, let's just say you did. It is okay. You are human. Right. Maybe sometimes you might do that, you know? And so it's like, you know, it's not a way that I want to live all the time. But I think when we talk about accountability and just the way we operate in society, there's just no room to be, you know, that's why I'm always like, okay, like you messed up or you didn't really love the way you showed up.
Yeah.
Fine. You get to be human, you know, and maybe that's a reminder you say to yourself, you get to be human.
Yes. And, you know, something that you have said, too, that is helpful is it's okay to sit in the anxiety of not knowing. Like, did I talk too much? As you just said, I don't know. Maybe. You'll never know.
Yeah.
But you can go on another day.
Yeah, but what good is it, you know? Like, I remember just laying in bed, and I almost chuckled at myself, like, girl, go to bed. Go to bed. Because even if that's the case, or people tell you or they don't tell you, like, sometimes that might happen, or you might feel that way, and there's no way of knowing that if it's true or not. It felt true for you in the moment, but it's like, you're human. You might do that. You were having a good time. You got excited. It's all right, you know?
Yeah.
So that's usually, I try to do that. Like, what is a good reason or what's a stress-free? Is there any other reason that's stress-free to continue to hold on to this thought? And if I can't, it's like, forget it. Good night.
Yes. And when I say mistakes, I mean things as small as that. Yeah. Or on the other end of the spectrum, like you really messed up something at work. But I think your advice still stands no matter where it lies.
Yeah. You know, I owned a company once, and I remember, you know, someone that worked with me kind of almost getting on my case about making a mistake, almost like they were shocked that someone like me would make a mistake. And I think something that people probably don't know about me is that I'm like, oh, I messed up. I say, oh my gosh, I messed up. Yeah. And I think people will be shocked and surprised that it's like, yeah, I'm going to mess up. It's not that I want to, but sometimes I'm moving too fast. I didn't read it completely. You know, I don't always want to be this way, but sometimes I messed up. And here's the thing, here's what I know, Ashley. I'm doing way too much.
Yeah.
When I am doing too much, I find the more that I'm doing, the more mistakes that I'm making. And that's just a part of that's just it, you know? And sometimes if I want to turn down the volume on my mistakes, I'm probably going to start to do less. And then sometimes I'm just in a season of sometimes I just got to go hard. And I know that in going hard, like recently I put up a new website and someone wrote like, there's typos. And I'm like, yeah, there's typos when you put together a website in like 9 days, you know?
Right.
The more you do, the more mistakes you make.
Yes.
But it's up and it's done.
Right. It's done. It's not perfect, but it's here. And I will add, just as the last thing on this one question, is sometimes, depending on the environment, it feels like you don't get to make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes people aren't used to giving themselves the grace, so they don't give you the grace, which leads to them believing that you are like, oh, you don't care about this, because why would you have that attitude, you know?
Yeah. Something that I learned in my parenting journey, I have an excellent podcast episode with Dr. Becky. If y'all haven't listened to it, tune into that. But something that I learned from her that I have found helpful in managing work situations is that she has something that she teaches parents, self included, that's called an emotional vaccination, which is like, you know, if you don't want your kids to get to the circus or get to Disneyland and start clowning and cutting up, you start to, what she calls like emotionally vaccinate them by letting them know what to expect. And I have found in working situations, like at the top of a big project, for someone that you can kind of already get the feeling is that like is more rigid, is to emotionally vaccinate them of like, okay, Sarah, Richard, whoever the heck, I'm really excited about this project. You know, I'm expecting to do this, and this, you know, should a mistake arise, you can do this and I will do that. And I have found that just kind of like getting people prepared for the idea that on a big project, things happen and we already know that. And here's what you can count on me to do, you know, shoot me a text or an email or call me. I feel like that little tip or tool that I've used with my children applies to work and really just makes room for smoother work environments.
I love that. Priming people and then creating the space for yourself. Should it happen, right?
Should it happen? And then this other layer that she adds that I also like in work environments is just this idea that like letting people feel what they feel. So if you make a mistake and people are like, it's like, yeah, there's nothing, they can feel that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, you know, acknowledging, she calls it AVP, acknowledging, validating, and permitting people to feel what they feel. Acknowledge you're upset. Validate. That's upsetting, you know, you get to feel, and, you know, and then permission to feel that way. People get to be upset with you when you make mistakes, but that doesn't necessarily say anything about you. You know?
And I think that's the key right there. People are allowed to be upset with you.
Yes.
We don't want people to be, we don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to let them down. But the truth is that you will disappoint.
You will. Yes. That's just part of the human experience. You're going to disappoint someone. You're going to let them down. You're going to make mistakes. And that's okay. You know?
I love that.
Okay.
It kind of leads into the next question a bit. So, you know, in today's landscape, social landscape, we see this a lot, right? Where people will read down somebody. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she read her from top to bottom. Like, it's like when you really tell somebody off. You know? I feel like that happens a lot. We like to use more harsh words when maybe we want to have the more healing conversation. But what we're used to is having the more harmful ones where we say mean things. It's a competition. Who can say the meanest thing? And that's how I win the argument. Really, I want to connect with you and tell you that I'm hurting, but I don't have the language for that. I don't want to be hurt by that. Again, I don't want to be blamed for it. So how can we tap into that vulnerability that will allow us to have the healing conversations, especially with people that we love, right?
Yeah. Such a good question. And even as you were saying that, like reading for filth and reading down, I felt that like in my stomach because I'm just not built for that. I'm just not built for being told off, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I have been in spaces or in, conversations with people who are very angry perhaps and don't necessarily know how to have conversations. It's so interesting because I don't have a ton of experience with that. And a part of me, I mean, this could be my ego. There's a part of me that just thinks that, I don't know, I try to create an environment where maybe you don't feel like you need to tell me off, or maybe you do. But I try to, similarly to what we were talking about in that last question, I try, and this is a skill that I have built. She's a grown-up. She's a grown-up. She's middle-aged, this is like, I have been doing therapy for probably 12, 13 years at this point. It's a skill that I have built to allow people to feel what they feel, right? So people get to be upset with me. When people are upset, that might look like saying things, attitude. Like sometimes I think we don't like that, but I think I have a tolerance for the fact that you're upset and it doesn't feel good, right? Mm-hmm. Whether I think I did anything or not, I can still validate the fact that you are angry. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm not trying to argue with you about what you feel. Mm-hmm. I think if someone says something that's not true, then I would say, no, that's not true. Well, when you did this, and I've been in scenarios like this. Well, when you did this, people be like, well, when you said this, I took it to mean ... Well, that's not true. Mm-hmm. That's not true. When I said I couldn't come, it wasn't because, people just make up these stories. Yeah. And so sometimes I find, just sticking to that's not true. When I said this, I'm trying to think of the last time I maybe even had a situation like this, where I can recall someone saying, I was treating them like whatever they felt. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I really am sorry you feel that way. And I'm not laughing, but I really am sorry you're feeling that way. But that truly wasn't my intent. Yeah. That truly wasn't my intent. And, if I need to apologize, I might, if things perhaps have to stay confused, I'm also fine with that, mm-hmm. And I think I kind of know where I may be going or not going as far as the relationship is concerned. I think staying away from like winning or solving things, I'm not always, I'm definitely not, there's nothing to win. And sometimes there's nothing to solve. And sometimes, if you could just provide some more clarity and let people sit with that. But I think because I am one of those people that's like, I don't know, it seems like, are you okay? Somebody's like, because the going off usually starts with a few snaps. It starts with some snaps or some ignoring before. And I'm one of those people that might be like, I don't know, like, is everything okay between us? And I think I have avoided a good amount of that in relationships that I am invested in. Mm-hmm. If I'm not invested in a relationship with you, why you would be going off on me is beyond me. We don't have enough for that.
Yes.
So I feel very lucky that I feel like I am in relationships with people who are also doing the same work that I'm doing. And so mm-hmm. when someone comes to me with something hard, I think I know how hard that is anyway. Mm-hmm. So I find myself softened, like, damn, this is not easy.
Yeah.
Like bringing something to somebody you care about and in a relationship that you want to preserve, this is some hard stuff. So the fact that you did this without ghosting me or cutting me off, like you value this relationship enough to untangle this, like I think I softened. So I don't even know if I answered the question, but
you did. I think the key there was, again, people get to be angry with you.
Yes.
Right? But anger doesn't always look one way.
Right.
And I think when I was asking you this question, I was thinking from the standpoint of, like you, I don't. I think I can stay pretty grounded even in the most conversations, but sometimes when I have had to have those heated conversations where somebody is clearly trying to like tear me apart, I'm just in shock. Like,
Right.
wow, you could
Wow.
really get that angry at me.
Yeah,
We
they
are
can.
friends. What's going
Yeah.
on? Like you said, are you okay?
Yeah.
And it's that part. Sometimes I feel the pull of like, okay, you want to do that. I don't want to go to that level, but now I'm getting angry when I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I guess the key for me is just that anger comes in different
Right.
ways.
Sure.
It shows up differently. And a lot of times when I have had conversations with that intensity, the person has calmed down
Yes.
in realizing that it's me, Ashley.
It.
You know you can come to me and you don't have to be up there.
Yeah.
Or
But
if you do, it's okay. We can come back to this when you're not up there.
Yeah, so everybody doesn't have the tool. These are tools and skills that someone has to teach us, you know. And so, I mean, I've been in situations where I've sat across from someone who's kind of just like kind of low key undressing me, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
you know. But something that I can just recall going through my head is like, there's nothing for you to do. There's nothing for me to do, you know. I think even I don't even jump to defend myself because that's not true. That's not true. That's not true, you know?
yeah,
And, you know, I've learned that for a lot of people, their perception is their reality, or people will project their stuff onto you. So I've had people say, oh, you did this and did that. And it's like, that's how you think. I don't even think like that.
right. I
know?
did do that.
Yeah, you thought you were this or that. Like, I don't think like that. So, you can't tell me what I'm thinking.
Right.
Okay, all right. What else do we have? Because I feel like we can talk. You and I can go all day.
We could.
Yes.
My next question is more of like, it's a lighter hearted one. So I think you posted this, you've reposted this a couple times.
Okay.
But it's either an Instagram post, a Facebook post, something. But you basically said like, I know I need to make more money now because my fashions, like, I'm just not interested in.
Oh, when I was younger, yes.
Right? And I feel that sometimes. Like, I feel like I'm growing, like, okay, I would like to try, like, some new fashion, beauty things. The stuff that I used to like, kind of outgrowing it. So my question for you is, what was the first fashion, beauty, style purchase you made? And it made you think, oh, I've arrived in my style, in my look, in my... You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, fun story, and I've told this a bunch. When I was younger, I used to love reading the magazines and, walking past stores and just not being able to afford things. And I remember sitting on an airplane, and I used to always buy magazines, and I was flipping through a magazine, and I think a skirt was like $470 or something. I'm like, oh my God, I can finally buy a $400 skirt. I had never been able to do that. And, I just there were all these things that I would see. And I remember one work day, I just took a lunch break and went to Neiman Marcus. Is that Neiman Marcus? Neiman Marcus right here in Atlanta. And it almost was just like all the light was like shining on this like Valentino bag. And I was like, oh my God, I love that bag. And I think I looked at the price, and I think it was like $5,000 at the time. And I was just like, you know what? I'm buying it. I still have that purse. I hate that purse. I hate that purse. I wore it for maybe like a couple weeks, and for so many reasons, I just don't, it's a cute purse, and I should take a picture of it. I'm like, did I get rid of it? It's a cute purse, but it just was like, ultimately, I didn't love it. And I think what I have learned over time is that I did have an appetite for, higher quality things I felt like I couldn't have, but ultimately I don't, from day to day, that's just kind of not my jam. So as I'm sitting here talking with you today, a person who can afford things, this is a top that I got on sale from J. Crew, and I'm wearing a pair of Madewell jeans, and my socks I got for free in like a gift pack, you know, one of those book gift packs. They're Nedra's Drama Free socks. And so I think it took me a lot of years and a lot of money wasted and a lot of donated things to be like, I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy higher quality things if that's what you want. But knowing then what I know now, I'd probably take a different approach to getting them. I have found there was these like pair of Gucci shoes that I wanted. And because they were like maybe 2 seasons ago, and I had only ever discovered them, like I saw them today. And then when I looked on the website, they were gone. And I found them on eBay for like 70% off, brand new. And so that would just be the approach that I would say to take to things. Like if there's something you want today with technology, like hunt it down, hunt it down, because you can probably get it eventually for a lot less.
Yeah, that's so true. And sometimes you go to these stores or just even look online, and as you keep clicking the pages or as you keep going through the racks, you're like, this isn't quite what I thought it would be.
Yeah. I don't know. I've resold and given away enough clothes and items to know that, like, if there's some bag or something you want or some brand, buy it used first. Like, buy it used first to, like, fall in love with the brand or something first, but don't pay full price.
Yeah.
Don't pay full price.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. Unless, it'll come around eventually.
And quality is not necessarily attached to the brand name. Like
No.
you mentioned a couple of things. J. Crew, love J. Crew, love Madewell.
Same.
Even a good, like, Target has great rediscovering, like, oh, Target has some nice stuff. So it doesn't have to be grand, but going back to what you said earlier, I think sometimes when you cross that threshold from like,
I got it now.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
It's
You're
like myself. I got it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've shared that my accountant and my wealth manager refer to those as the trick off years, where you're just like, just buying crap you don't need, which they say they do recommend that, like, but have a cutoff date,
Right.
like I am going to cut this off soon. So yes.
Yeah. Okay.
What else you got for me?
My next question is, you stay committed to your personal work, whatever that looks like in your season, no matter what seems to be going on in the.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
World. And so my question to you is, how? How do you do that when there's so much happening? And I don't mean so much as in like reading blogs or anything. I mean, like, there are things in this world, as you know, that are threatening our very just existence, livelihood, environment, freedom. And sometimes for me, I feel guilty for pursuing personal work when there's bigger things at hand. Sometimes I feel like my personal work doesn't hold value when there's bigger things at hand. So how do you stay committed to doing what you need to do in spite of it all?
I think deep down, I have this life philosophy that we cannot help others before we've helped ourselves. Right? So it's just like if, you know, even just the kind of quality of the help that one is able to give if they are depleted, you know? And so I think, I don't know, I think the kind of work that I do personally and with my, you know, on myself and that sort of deal, it doesn't really, you know, I don't know if it feels as arduous as it might seem, but it's like more of just like a commitment, you know, a commitment to self, and not, I hope it's not all the time, you know, I hope it's not all the time. I have an incredible awareness of what is happening around us, you know. I think there is a part of me, like my personality, that is just mindful of what is a distraction, you know, what is a distraction and how do I continue to help without being distracted? And so I think that's how, you know, kind of how I keep myself steady.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how useful I am when I'm not steady. So I just try to stay steady. You know, it's like I'm aware. I see the things. I know what's going on. And I think the personal work allows me to know that, like, I know I can cope with this. I know that no matter how hard this gets, I can cope.
Yeah.
You know, and community, which is why I create community. I try to be community because it's like, we definitely are not going to be able to do this alone. So let's hold hands, guys.
Yes. And, you know, during the pandemic, I was reading something. This man, he was like a centenarian. I think he was like 108 or something. He had lived through pandemics, wars, all types of things. And I think he said something to the effect of, the ordinary has always happened during extraordinary times.
Yeah.
And he was saying, like, even in the midst of war, there are people giving birth, there are promotions, there are people buying homes. So life has to continue going. And when I read that, it kind of grounded me in the idea of, like, there are people who have lived through times such as these or worse and still committed to their personal work, which is connected to the grand scheme of things, right? Like, your personal is personal, but it's also connected to the community, and that's going to be too. So
if you read back, like, if you read any bit of history, right, there's not very many new things. Yeah. You know, if you go back, you know, 100 years, 1,000 years, like, it's, you know, and it's like, I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but it's like a part of the human experience is suffering, you know, and I think so many of us as young people were fed so much, you know, fantasy, happiness. And I think there was a period in my life where I thought happiness was the goal. And I have gratefully lived long enough to know that learning to cope with, manage all things, you know what I mean? You know, in all sorts of ways is the goal. You know, it's just, you know, to be happy. Yes. The suffering is a part of the human experience, you know, but like in other cultures, they attempt to prepare their young children by, you know, these rites of passages where they send them out in the dark for X amount of days by themselves. And there's, if you read about how, you know, past civilizations and cultures tried to prepare you for suffering in your life. And we just don't do that anymore. Now we're talking about tiger moms and helicopter moms. And now when things happen in our lives, we are shocked.
Yeah.
You know, I think like when my mom died, I think I was, you know, a heartbreaking and shocking experience nonetheless. But when I would like encounter people who would be like, almost like, there's that part where you're like in utter disbelief, but I'm like, people die, right?
Yeah.
People die. Like this is a bummer. I don't want this to happen now, but I am able to wrap my mind around the fact that people die. And I think that is something that we don't prepare for, talk about. You know, suffering is inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think for me, sometimes that's where the guilt comes in, because I literally had this thought the other day that suffering is a part of the process. I feel guilty for sometimes saying that, or it's not that I'm unfazed. Like you said, I'm very aware of what is going on, but I have the thought like, okay, and we continue to go on. Mm-hmm. But I feel guilty for saying that when people are suffering in really real ways.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's hard, but we go on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. I hear you. All right.
Okay.
Where are we headed, Ashley?
So, you've kind of talked about this, not directly, but since we've been going through these questions, I know that you are a Taurus, right?
Yes.
And I too am part of the Earth Gang. I am a Virgo. So
all right.
I think with Earth signs, we are very grounded, right? Because we are Earth signs. But aside from that, how do you come back to yourself in moments of uncertainty or self-doubt? I feel like from what you've shown us through your podcast and through your various platforms, you've always seemed very self-assured, very confident, very much a go-getter. So when you have those moments where you aren't sure, you do feel a little shaky, how do you come back to the Myleik that is certain of what she can do?
That's a good one. You know, it doesn't happen often, but it does happen, you know, where I'll do something and I'm like, ugh, maybe that's not what I thought it was going to be, or that didn't hit like I thought it would, or, you know, that didn't come across the way I hoped it would, you know, or you hope for something to be successful and it just doesn't, you know, really, people not vibing with it like that. But I think I always go back to being human. Like, yeah, it's normal that you would feel that way, you know? And when I feel it, I usually can feel it in my body. I know, like, it's like I get like a tightness, like, okay, I'm nervous if I'm going to do something. So I try to go for a walk. I try to do some breathing. But one thing that I'm pretty sure not to do is I don't talk down to myself. That's just like that's my major no-no. That's my major no-no with myself, is I'm not going to talk down to myself. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm just going to say, you tried. You tried and you learned something, and that, or maybe that didn't go the way you wished it did, and make room for whatever those feelings are. Like, you get to be kind of disappointed. You had higher hopes. But I think the thing that really keeps me going is I don't make up stories.
Yeah.
You know, I don't make up stories about myself, you know, about other people. I don't do that. So I just try to, you know, it's like, all right, well, there's tomorrow. You know, it's not over.
Yeah.
You know, it's not over. If something doesn't, you know, I'll do these things and people be like, oh, well, do you feel good about it? And I'm like, if one person shows up to something that I do, to me, that feels like success, because I don't, whether 1,000 people come or 2 people come, like, me getting off my ideas has to happen. And even if 2 people come, it's still a damn good idea as far as I'm concerned. You know, maybe it just didn't reach the right people. maybe the messaging wasn't right. Maybe the timing was off, but the idea, I had to let it go, you know? And sometimes that happens. You have these ideas, these things you want to do. And it's just like, even Curlbox was an idea that I didn't even expect to be as successful as it was. It was just like, this thing is keeping me up at night. Mm-hmm. I just got to get this off. Yeah. And so that's how I operate. That, like, whether it's stuck or not, it had to happen. Yeah.
And I would say that helps build confidence more. I think the process of doing it and building it and putting it out there helps build your self-esteem and confidence more than whatever the result is. Of course, if it's successful and it reaches a lot of people, that's a huge confidence booster. But the idea that you had an idea and you had the courage to see it through to fruition, that will build your self-esteem more than anything, I think.
I agree. And I think sometimes, you know, when people say don't be attached to the results, it's like, I get it. But what we just don't make room for is when you take a step and you do the thing, maybe like me starting that, maybe the results that I got, they could have been different, where it's like, maybe nobody bought it. Like, let's just say hypothetically, maybe it didn't take off I mean, I had no idea. Maybe it didn't take off the way it did, but it got noticed by some other big person who then decides to buy it or whatever, or whatever, you know, but you have to do it to find out what might happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I would love to share this with you quickly. So in my day job, I create like e-learning courses and things like that. So I had the opportunity to create this course for like Women's History Month.
Okay.
And I think like 5 people looked at it out of so many, and they were like, oh, great, wonderful job. And I was like, you know, I really feel like I did a great job with that. Not a lot of people looked at it, but I said to myself, you know, there will be another time for you to share this work.
Yep.
Right? Fast forward to last year, I found that there was this learning conference, and they were calling for presenters to present a work. And I said, I'm going to present that thing that I made 2 years ago.
That was already done.
That was already done. And they selected me. Yep. And I got to go to Vegas and
come on. Yes.
And it was just like, wow, a full circle moment. So maybe not there in that immediate moment,
right?
Recognized, but because you've already done the work,
that part,
when it is your time, you'll be prepared.
You're ready,
and it reaches so many more people than you ever thought.
That is what I try to tell people, that sometimes you have to just beat the drum, and then when someone knocks on your door, you know what I mean? So it's like, if you're writing on your blog or you're doing these things and nobody's looking, you're getting 2 likes. But then the minute somebody comes and you open that door and you've got everything done, that's what you were doing it for. But because we are in this like likes and numbers, and, you know, we love seeing screenshots of how well other things are going for people, we can't trust that when we have to do what's on our heart, like, we just don't know what it's going to lead to. You don't know the results.
Yes, exactly.
And congrats to you.
Thank you so much. So yes. I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
Very, again, lighthearted questions.
Okay.
So, what makes a good book? I know you're an avid reader, right?
Yes.
You're reading so many different things. I remember you read that Jessica Simpson autobiography, and I was like,
that.
My gosh.
Yes.
And you just read tons of things. So what goes into a good book? What will catch Myleik's eye?
What will catch my eye? You know, I love stories that people tell. You know, that's why I'm really into like autobiographies. Like I love hearing people tell their story for no other reason than I think you realize that we all kind of have something that we're struggling with or going through, and that like there is no perfect scenario. Even the people that you think are at the top of whatever, everybody has dealt with or is dealing with something. So I love stories like that. I love I just read a book that's kind of like strange and interesting. But I think I like things that are like honest, risky, things that I can learn from. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I've picked up a lot of books that I've not finished, so there's also that. But like I have not started a single book this year. And the month is almost over, and that is so unlike me.
Yes.
I usually have decided, and I think I've just like overthought it. Like, okay, what is going to be my first book of the year? And to the point that I've read nothing. So I have to figure this out because I'm torn between leisure and learning. And so sometimes I think when I'm starting to lean too heavy on the learning to start to, pull back out into the leisure. And so, I haven't decided. So I've read nothing, sadly. Yeah.
Same. I haven't read anything. And to your point, I think I'm putting too much on it. Like,
yes.
Let me read what Goodreads is recommending.
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah. I started listening. Yeah, I started listening to a book but here's the thing. I started listening to the book and I'm like, no, I want to read this on my Kindle because I want to highlight and save the notes. And so I stopped listening to it because I was like, I don't want to listen to it in the car. But the truth of the matter is I probably shouldn't say I haven't read anything. I should say I haven't started anything. So I'm still finishing. And maybe that's what the heck I need to do this year. I'm finishing up a bunch of audiobooks and like one more book on my Kindle. So, which is probably what we all need to be doing is reading what we got.
Exactly. You got books at home.
You got books at home. I got books. I'm trying to finish. There's things that I have Spotify audio. I'm like, let me finish some of this stuff.
Yes.
So that's what I've been doing.
Agreed. Okay. That gives me motivation to.
Yeah. Don't feel bad.
Books as well.
Yeah. It's like, let me finish what I got.
And so my last question for you is, can you recommend 3 wines? But for wines, can you recommend one for like the lower end of a budget, one for like in the middle, and one for like the higher end?
Really? Okay. So it depends because you start to get into like, I really don't think you have to have like really expensive wine anymore. I think similar to that like Valentino bag I was telling you about, I feel like I've tasted enough wine in my life to know that like, a $200 bottle of wine isn't always necessary. I would probably say, and I don't drink as much wine as I used to. I think part age, part when my mom was sick and unwell, I just kind of like cut back my drinking probably like by 90%, which then you just don't pick it back up because you're like, bleh.
Yeah.
But, on the low end, if I was just like grabbing a really probably $15, I'm always going to go, I don't even know what brand it is, but it just says Beaujolais. It says Beaujolais. It's like a tan. I'll try to look for it. I need to make a note so that I can remember that. But it's just like any kind of Beaujolais is always just fine, Usually grocery stores carry this one particular brand of Beaujolais. So if they have it, trust that it's going to be decent, Okay. So the point where I think they've raised the price a little bit because it used to be like $12. And I think I've seen it sometimes at $20. I'm like, oh, y'all playing, Yeah, I think on the higher end, if I'm going to spend, $15, $60, I'm probably going bubbles, And so if I'm going, now I do like bubble. I do like my bubbles to have a little bit of a little price on them.
Yeah.
I do because you want it to be, champagne, using the champagne method, and just champagne in general is typically a little bit more expensive. But if I was going to do a really good champagne, I'm doing Billecart,
Okay.
Billecart. And beyond that, I'm probably not doing much else after that, Yeah.
So you like to stay in the mid?
I'm a mid, yeah. Unless I'm with, every now and then, when I'm with my friends that have money. Every now and then when you're with your friends, you're like, okay, I guess we will split a $200 bottle or something,
Right.
And to me, that's more about celebration, experience, story. I feel like that is what I think probably what I enjoy most about wine tasting, sharing bottles, gifting, are the stories that come with these wines. You know, it's like art. You go to the wineries, you hear the different stories, you hear about the soil, you hear about the owners, you find out like who made the label, how long did it sit. You know, it feels like history. And so I do find that like when I'm with my friends that really are just like, all right, let's do it. You know, I might do like something splurgy or splurgy with family, you know, every now and then. But otherwise, I don't know. I've definitely chilled out. I'm definitely more of and I like more like natural biodynamic wine. So just like, I find that's what I lean towards, and those just aren't expensive at all. So because they're not aging them. So they are on the cheaper side, but I was told that they are quote unquote out according to sources that I'm no longer in vogue because like they're like natural wines out. It's not a thing anymore. Whatever.
Interesting.
Exactly.
I can't remember if it was you or something that I saw on Instagram, but there was a sommelier and they were like, the best wine is the one that you will drink.
That's usually the case when it comes to everything. Alan Cooley, the photographer who has shot my headshots for my websites, I remember saying to him, because we used to shoot like every few weeks, and I would be like, I want to start like creating content, because I was gonna like, in my mind I was gonna have a YouTube channel. This is years ago, and I was like, what kind of camera should I use? And he was like, you should use like your phone. Like the best camera is the one you know how to use and are going to use. And so I feel like that applies to anything, right? The best wine for you is the one you want to drink.
Yes.
You know, and don't let people, I don't know, like I feel like there is this snobbiness to wine, and it's like, don't let people do that to you. If you like your sweet, you like your jam jar, girl, have your jam jar, do your thing. You know, you like that? It's a little too sweet. People,
I love sweet wine. I love them.
Yeah, and if you like sweet wine, you know, for the sweet wine lovers, what are some good sweet wines? You know, I think me and Julie talked about this. Some really good Moscatos. You know, like there's some really good Moscatos out there. Other than that, I'm not the biggest sweet. I'm not the biggest sweet girl, but I'm not a big sweet in general. So, anywho,
yes,
thank you for this time. Thank you for these thoughtful questions. Thank you for listening, tuning in. I appreciate you. So I always love these conversations. I wish more people would write to me so that we could do these episodes, because I love just wanting to know what you want to ask. So thank you for your questions, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you.